Hello, welcome to my third video. Third video in 3 days. You're all going to be getting sick of the sight of me, I know. I'm sick of the sight of myself, so I wouldn't be surprised that you're sick of the sight of me. I was struggling for a while to think about a topic for my third video. But it came to me while I was reading the news this morning that I'm going to continue with yesterday's topic. Not more Brexit bollocks, because I know you're sick of that bollocks. I'm sick of that bollocks. But one of the topics connected to Brexit, which came up yesterday, constitutional reform. Very exciting stuff, I know. In particular, reform of the House of Lords. As I mentioned yesterday, the House of Lords is democratically illegitimate. I mean, what in God's name is a 21st century so-called liberal democracy doing with an unelected parliamentary chamber? And don't fall for this nonsense that keeps getting sprouted by these people, including former Speaker of the House of Lords, Baroness de Souza, that the House of Lords does lots of good work. It scrutinises word by word, line by line, all the bad legislation which gets through the Commons. So we have the House of Lords to thank for all the excellent laws that are on the statute book. What poppycock? What poppycock? Is that all you can do to justify your existence? To legitimize your existence? The fact that you scrutinize all the bullshit that comes from the House of Commons? We have the upper chamber of Parliament. 800 unelected individuals who have the right, by prime ministerial fiat, by prime ministerial appointment, and leaders of the various parties in the House of Commons, and the Lords Spiritual, who, by the way, unless you didn't know, are actually bishops of the Church of England, and various other individuals who, I don't know, Jeffrey Archer's one of them. Convicted criminals also sit in the House of Lords. Various people who couldn't be bothered to continue to stand for election to the House of Commons get ennobled. Have a plushy number up in the House of Lords. So they can't be bothered to do the work of an elected politician anymore, an elected representative of the people. They sit back and they wait for the Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition or whichever party that they're a member of to give them a nice sweet number, and then they get a nice title from the Queen. So they can sit in the House of Lords and continue to make law and to continue to hold forth on matters of important public debate. Various formerly members of Her Majesty's Armed Forces. Anyone who was formerly a member of the European Parliament and can't be bothered doing that job anymore. All these hangers-on and trade union leaders. Can you imagine in any country except Britain, in any other country in the world except the United Kingdom, trade unionists taking seats in an unelected chamber of Parliament? It makes me sick. It makes me sick to hear these people try to justify their position, their privileges, and their attendance allowances. Turns out that a certain member of the House of Lords has claimed £50,000 in attendance allowances between 2017 and 2018. without doing a single bloody thing. Doesn't take part in debates, doesn't table any parliamentary questions, doesn't, dare I say it, represent the people. No, what this sorry, pathetic excuse for an individual decided to do was claim all of these attendance allowances and do this. Here, where's my phone? I'll play with this and I'll claim my attendance allowance. Oh, it's a cushy number, this, isn't it? Bloody hell. Eyes down for a full house, bit of porn here. And that's what this arsehole has claimed £50,000 to do. Oh. Now, I'm sorry. Your lordships and ladyships. It's time to say goodbye. You are an anachronism. You are absolutely disgraceful, every single last one of you. You have the audacity to claim a title of nobility, to sit in part of the legislature and adjudicate and pass laws that I, as a citizen, have to obey. And I can't even vote you out of office. Your tenure is for life. Unless you get to the age of 95 and you decide, I've had enough of this, not doing any more of this. And then you decide to retire. Please, for goodness sake, do the honourable thing. When the next proposals come up for House of Lords reform, don't bother opposing them. When the proposals come up to abolish this anachronistic institution and say goodbye to the 92 hereditary peers who still sit in the House of Lords and, for some incomprehensible reason, still adjudicate on the law of the land. 92 hereditary peers who sit in the House of Lords because once upon a time they were, well, let's call a spade a spade. They were fucking the king at some point in the past. Or, I don't know, at some point in time immemorial, they inherited a title, land, or whatever it might be. Or they were some sort of ghastly general commanding the king's armies and probably committed several war crimes and acts of butchery in the process. They were ennobled, and then their children, grandchildren, and future progeny continue to sit in the House of Lords and pontificate on great national issues and adjudicate on the law. And this group of people form part of the 21st century legislature of Great Britain. Come on. For goodness sakes, do the honourable thing. Don't oppose any attempts at reform or, hopefully, abolition. What should we replace you with? The only thing that makes any sense in a 21st century liberal democracy, and the only thing that is justifiable. An elected chamber. Not 800 unelected arseholes who are milking it, riding the gravy train. An elected chamber, whatever the franchise might be, term limited. How is it term limited? By elections. When the House of Commons is elected, your chamber, let's call it a Senate or, I don't know, the Assembly of the People, whatever we want to call it, that chamber should be elected too, for 5-year terms. That's your term limit, the election. What power should you have? That's up for debate. Many democracies choose to separate the powers between both chambers. Perhaps this chamber has preeminence in this particular aspect of legislation or this particular aspect of scrutiny, while the other chamber has preeminence in another aspect. That's fine. Or how about a co-equal preeminence? So both chambers of Parliament have equal powers to scrutinize, equal powers to legislate, and they have to reach consensus. And hopefully this will help us to pass better laws. Because for the life in me, I don't think that any of the laws that have been passed in the present reign, Elizabeth II, have been made any better by the unelected House of Lords. Members drawn from the House of Commons, MPs who can't any longer be asked to get off their backsides and actually stand for election, Church of England bishops, and former members of the judiciary and diplomatic corps, the armed forces, senior civil servants, whoever, the former establishment, go on being the establishment. And don't give me all this bollocks and poppycock about the House of Lords is a chamber of experts, a revising chamber. The great and the good come here to advise on the law. Okay, that's fine. Of course we have panels of experts. Of course we have people in the know. Of course we will have people informing legislation and scrutinizing the government. That's the role of civil society. But they have no place in making the law unless they are democratically accountable, unless they are democratically legitimate. They stand for election, they can be dismissed at the next election if they haven't done a good job. That is the essence of democracy, which the House of Lords is the most disgusting affront to. So Baroness de Souza, your ladyship, don't come at me with all this bollocks. Do the honourable thing and clear off. And while we're at it, the monarchy, I'm going to keep this brief. You'll notice in the House of Lords that at the end of the chamber there's an ornate golden canopy of state. Under the canopy of state sits the throne, on whom the crown is placed. The occupant of the throne, currently Elizabeth II. The only time the Queen ever goes to Parliament is for the state opening. That time when she gets in a carriage, surrounded by the household cavalry, escorted through the streets of London, goes into Parliament, puts on that ridiculous crown, jewels of which should be returned to the rightful owners, and proceeds to read out the legislative programme for this Parliament. Oh, by the way, of course, because of the Brexit bollocks that I talked about yesterday, because Brexit has taken up all of the legislative time of Parliament, because the government has no other legislative programme whatsoever except Brexit, which it hasn't been able to pass at all. There's no other legislative programme in place. The House of Lords have nothing to do. The only thing they do is scrutinise legislation, but as there's no legislation to scrutinise, they have absolutely nothing to do. Nothing. And don't let any coverage on BBC Parliament fool you into thinking, oh yes, at least they're doing something. Believe me, they aren't. They aren't. They are doing bugger all. So anyway, Elizabeth II comes to open Parliament, the state opening, puts on the crown, reads that god-awful speech that has been, it's not even a speech, is it? It's a list that's been written for her by the government of the day, by the cabinet. So, we have a Parliament that has three parts: the House of Commons, the House of Lords, and the Queen, otherwise formally referred to as the Queen in Parliament, or the Crown in Parliament. So Parliament is the supreme law-making body in the United Kingdom, consists of these three elements. Let's just deconstruct that a little bit. Two of those elements are not elected. Two of those elements are not chosen by the people, and they cannot be dismissed or removed by the people in any form of election or any form of plebiscite whatsoever. They have no democratic mandate whatsoever. And yet, these two unelected parts of the legislature, these two unelected parts of parliament, sit and make laws for you and for me and for any other British citizen. Not the House of Commons, not MPs that we can elect and we can recall. An unelected House of Lords and an unelected hereditary monarch. Elizabeth II became Queen in 1952 and is still Queen today. Why? And I don't mean to be insensitive about this. I don't want to make this personal. This is a political and constitutional point. She is head of state because her father passed away. And she has been head of state ever since. And she will remain head of state. Again, I don't want to be morbid about this, but it's a fact. She will be head of state without a change in the law until the end of her life. At which point will we be able to choose the next head of state, the next person to represent us on the world stage, the next person to sign your laws into law, to give effect to what's been decided in the House of Commons, and unless it's reformed, the House of Lords. Who will it be? It will be the current Prince of Wales, the son of Elizabeth II. A man also without any democratic legitimacy whatsoever. A man who has never stood for election to any body whatsoever. And yet, at the end of the current reign, the death of Elizabeth II, this person, this man, will automatically, at that instant, become the head of state. You will have to be loyal to him. If you're a member of the armed forces, you will have to swear allegiance to him. Public office holders have to take an oath of loyalty to him. Not to the law, not to the Constitution, not to the principles that underpin it, but to that individual, to Prince Charles, as he will be King Charles III, most likely, by name, or George VII, whatever he chooses to call himself. He's never stood for election. Elizabeth II has never stood for election. And yet, Elizabeth II is an integral part of the legislative process. Yes, nobody's going to, and if they were to, they'd be delusional. Nobody's going to say that Elizabeth II is an important political figure. She isn't. The Queen is forbidden from taking sides, from participating in party politics. But that's not the point. In any sensible, supposedly mature democracy, the fundamental right of the people to choose their legislators and to choose their head of state is unquestioned. Why is the United Kingdom any different? Why do we have to be different? Why do we have to maintain this anachronistic system of government, of parliament, of law? I want to be a citizen of a country in which I can elect everyone who takes it upon themselves to stand for election and to pass laws that I have to obey, that I have to follow. I want to be able to dismiss these people at an election if I'm not happy with their performance. I want the head of state, the person to whom I have to be loyal, to be somebody I can also dismiss from office. Not somebody who holds this office by right of inheritance. Somebody who holds this office simply because someone else's life ended. I don't want to have to sing a badly written song to an individual who means nothing to me and has nothing, no connection to my life. I'm an atheist anyway. Why on earth am I going to sing a song to a non-existent God about a nonagenarian woman? Not that I wish her any personal ill will, because I don't. But I do not, and I cannot justify to myself, of any grounds whatsoever, how an individual, simply by right of birth, can assume these extraordinary powers and have these powers over me as a citizen, and why I have to be loyal to them. No, that's not a democracy. That's a joke. In fact, in the 21st century, it's a disgrace. I mean, anachronism is not the right word. Disgrace, farcical, comical, these words come to mind. Let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. We all know monarchy isn't sacrosanct anymore. We all know kings and queens, sovereigns, we all know they aren't appointed by God. We all know God didn't choose them before birth. Yes, this person is my representative on earth. He or she reigns through me. Monarchs don't need to be anointed in anachronistic ceremonies in Westminster Abbey by oil that came from the Jordan or wherever it is. All they need to be is someone like you or someone like me, a citizen who believes that they have something to offer, who believes in a better world, who believes in the principles of the rule of law, personal freedom, democracy, the protection of human rights, and who believes that they can, with these principles in mind, create a better society, a better world. And for a brief time, let's give them the chance to do so. Not only as a head of government, but also as a head of state. Not somebody who holds this position by hereditary right. It is difficult enough, it sticks in my craw to think that I have to be loyal to Elizabeth II, but under no circumstances am I going to be loyal to Charles III, William V, or whomever else might, at some future point in time during my lifetime, become the heir to the English throne. No, I'm not going to maintain this pretense that D-list celebrities have any right whatsoever to claim any loyalty or allegiance from me, or any right to sit in Parliament and make laws, whether as a cipher or not, or to be the individual to whom the armed forces swear allegiance. The law principles of democratic government, the Constitution, human rights. That's who we should be loyal to. That's who we should be swearing allegiance to. That's it for today. I said enough. I said it quite forcefully. I hope it's gone in here, stayed in here, and not come out here, although maybe it has. Anyway, that's enough for today. No poetry for today. I'm not going to read anything today, because I said what I had to say quite forcefully, and adding some droll poetry to it isn't going to make the point any more forcefully. Next video, I'm not sure when it will be. Tomorrow, maybe Sunday, maybe Monday, maybe sometime next week, because I need to think about my next topics. I think my next topic might be something more about constitutional reform, but in relation to another topic. It might be something about the Conservative Party leadership contest, or maybe something about Donald, the Donald. And you know what I have to say? Even if I don't do anything on the Donald, I want to remind you all about something that he got the crowds at his various rallies back in 2016 to say. He got them chanting, didn't he? About Hillary Clinton. So I'm going to turn that around a little bit and just give you a flavour of what I feel about Donald Trump. Lock him up! Lock him up. That's right, not lock her up, lock him up. Okay, I've made that point quite forcefully as well. Okay, so, till next time.